If you're an expat or immigrant living in Portugal or dreaming of moving here, you've probably seen a lot of the drama online around the new immigration law proposals.
Yes, on June 23rd, last week, the Portuguese government proposed new immigration laws that have caused panic and concern amongst the immigrant and expat community.
And what we're talking about is the potential increase in citizenship waiting period from 5 to 10 years. And that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we've seen and heard some misinformation out there. People saying that these laws are already in effect, which is definitely not the case.
So in this week's episode, we're cutting through the noise to give you the facts, tell you what these proposals could mean, and what the current status is. And stick around to see how these changes could potentially impact you and how you can take action today. Let's go.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Nations Without Borders. My name is Josine.
And I'm Eric, and together with our daughter Nora, we are the Nation family. As immigrants living here in Portugal, this topic hits very close to home for us and potentially for many of you watching today.
There is a lot of uncertainty and anger online, so our goal for today is to provide you clarity and context.
We'll report on what's being proposed, what our lawyers are saying about it, and what you could do about it. So let's dive in. All right, so let's start off by what's actually being proposed in this new draft law. It's not just one thing, but several key measures that could impact current and future residents. There's 11 main changes that we're gonna cover real quickly, and then later on in the video, we'll go over more context. The biggest change that people are worried about is the potential increase in the residency period to gain citizenship. So from the time you become a resident to the time you get a passport, AKA citizenship, they're proposing the increase from 5 to 10 years, so doubling it. And that's for most nationalities. If you're coming from a Portuguese-speaking country, it would be to 7 years.
Number 2 is an increased focus on integration, which includes a higher level of language and a basic understanding of the country's culture and civic values through a test.
So right now, the language requirement, it's very basic. You take a course, or I think it's an A2 level, so now they want to increase that requirement so people actually put in more effort into learning the Portuguese language. All right, and number 3 is stricter requirements for anyone with a criminal record. Before they were a little bit more lax about it, but now with the new changes, if you've been to prison at all for any duration, you will not be let in.
Number 4 are changes to the birth rights of children born here in Portugal. Before, it was that one of the parents had to be a legal resident for at least 1 year before the child was born, and the proposal now is that they're going to change that to 3 years.
And number 5, the proposal includes the potential end to the Sephardic Jewish route to citizenship.
Number 6, changes to the work visa criteria. Entry without an employment contract will be limited to highly qualified professionals only.
And number 7 is changes to family reunification. Now the proposal is that you have to have a residency for 2 years before you can apply to bring family members over. There's also some additional requirements such as stable income, appropriate housing, and participation in the integration programs.
Number 8, CPLP visa changes. CPLP basically means Portuguese-speaking countries. And the changes that are being proposed come down to adding new steps to make the process more fair and efficient.
And number 9 revolves around administrative changes to the process with AIMA, the immigration agency. Immigration Services AIMA will manage appointments based on available capacity, whatever that means, and the automatic approval with delay system will be discontinued for transparent outcomes. I'm not holding my breath on this one. They always claim they're gonna make more efficient, sometimes digitizing processes, but then they never execute on these promises, so we'll see what happens with that.
Number 10, expired document support. Because AIMA is so inefficient and backlogged, it's not uncommon that people's visas or residencies expire and that they technically get stuck inside the country.
Yeah, so they are proposing to extend the deadline for expired visas till October 15th with a simplified renewal process. We'll be hopeful about that. If your visa or residency has expired and people get worried about getting kicked out of the country or not being able to leave for fear of losing their residency, they are extending that deadline until October 15th. And with also the ability to grant an additional 6 months on top of that. All right, and number 11, which is actually a pretty big change, is the timeline from when they start counting the duration, when it takes you to get your citizenship or passport. So previously, the timeline would start from the time you apply for your visa. But now they're saying they want that duration to start from the time you get approved, which can be a pretty big gap because a lot of people will get their visa and they get over to Portugal and then they don't end up getting an appointment with EMA for a year or even longer. Sometimes I've heard cases of 2 years because it's so hard to get an appointment with EMA. So that could drag out the duration even longer. All right, speaking of EMA being inefficient, we actually have some good breaking news from EMA. They just announced that they'll be opening up 2 new online services on their website to facilitate the renewal of expired residence permits and pending applicants. That's pretty cool. And they also stated that all expired residence permits will be extended till October 15th. So if you're one of those people that have a pending application or an expired resident permit, make sure you check out the link in the description below to find out more information.
So those were the 11 key changes. Let's talk about the why. Why is the Portuguese government proposing these changes now? The official reason cited is to improve integration.
And if you've been paying attention to any of the news headlines, you're probably aware that Portugal has been in a bit of an immigration crisis. And it's been a rising topic, it's been growing in tension, it's a popular topic during elections, and it's one of the main reasons why the right-wing party has rise to the popularity is because of their strong stance on immigration. All right, so we're gonna present to you 3 reasons why we think the Portuguese government are making these changes. And this isn't like personally why we think, because we're not experts on the immigration topic. I've been following experts in the immigration field, including our lawyers, and I'm just kind of gonna be paraphrasing what some of them have been saying online. Number 1 with our research is the government is kind of trying to target low-skilled workers who were entering Portugal without a job, and then immigration pathways like expression of interest allowed them to enter without a job and apply to regularize their status, and often they weren't being checked that they had proof of substance, means to be here, income, things like this. So the professionals have been saying that they think they're kind of targeting this group of people who are coming into Portugal. And the number 2 reason is to reduce pressure on a immigration system that's overloaded. Currently, there are over hundreds and hundreds of thousands pending cases, and the thought is that instead of just fixing the processes with EMA, digitizing workflows and improving efficiency, they're taking the easier path, which is just closing the doors. The 3rd reason professionals are theorizing around why these changes are being proposed is to take back or win over votes from the far right electorate, Chega party. It's like a populist strategy, and they're thinking that the government's kind of proposing these changes to kind of win back those voters.
All right, now that you know the why, let's talk about how these changes impact the most popular visas and family reunification.
For families that were looking to move to Portugal and have the strategy of bringing over their family once the main resident gained residency, these changes are quite significant because now the primary resident would have to live in Portugal for 2 years before they can apply to start bringing their family over.
Which is a huge change because before you could apply right away.
However, it's important to note that holders of highly qualified professions will be exempt from this change. That includes the EU Blue Card holders, Golden Visa. So if you have any of these visas and you're a highly qualified professional, you can apply right away. You don't have to wait for the 2-year period.
Another proposed law imposes stricter rules on which family members can apply from inside Portugal. So in-country applications for family reunification will now be limited solely for minor children of the resident, if those children are already present.
So for other family members that are adults, such as siblings, parents, whatever, the process is now going to be more strict. They'll have to apply for outside the country, which all of this just kind of puts an end to the ability and the flexibility to have one of your siblings or your parent just come over and apply from within the country.
On top of these new timelines, all family reunification applications will face stricter requirements. Think about appropriate accommodation, financial means to support the family, real efforts to integrate, like language courses for the kids.
Next, let's talk about how these changes could impact the popular long-term stay visas such as D7, D8. And the answer to that question is not much. And in the context of the requirements to qualify for those visas, nothing has been stated much about those changing. It's still going to be the same process to apply, same requirements, but everything else we've mentioned in this video, that would still apply. And the main thing is the duration and which time it takes you to become a citizen and get that passport or for family reunification, because those rules still apply to any of those visas. But yeah, in terms of you applying and what it takes to qualify, that all stays the same. And the same thing pretty much goes for golden visas too. It's gonna be the same application process. The thing that's changing is the time it would take you to become a citizen and get your passport. There are talks about them changing the requirements of how long you have to stay in the country, because right now I think it's only 7 days out of the year. There are talks about them increasing that, but we'll see. All right, so let's talk about what's not changing. And like we were saying before, the process in which you apply for the D8, the D7 visa, golden visa, the process isn't changing. Neither is the requirements in order for you to qualify. Now, I have been reading in some groups that it seems like the consulates are getting a little bit more stricter on the documents they submit and things like that. So that could be a possibility depending on the consulate you get to. Because yeah, there is kind of a negative sentiment in the government right now about immigration. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the consulates start to get a lot more strict and stingy on the documents that you submit to prove that you qualify to get the visa.
Yeah, but the basic sentiment is the changes are being made for what you're getting and not for the whole process that you have to go through. It's more about like what are you getting in return, like the timelines and how long you can stay.
And something else that's not changing is gaining permanent residency. A lot of people tend to forget that after 5 years of having a visa, you can qualify to get a permanent residency, which is almost as good as being a citizen. When you're a permanent residency, there's some limitations, such as you can't vote, but you get a lot of the same benefits as a citizen. So that's one argument, because there's a lot of expats and immigrants complaining online about these new changes. And then I see a lot of comments from local Portuguese people be like, who cares if you don't become a citizen? You can still become a permanent resident and stay here. And so there's arguments on both sides.
So yeah, let's talk about the sentiment within the international community. As said, we've seen a lot of emotions online. People are feeling scared or fear or frustrated. They're angry or annoyed.
And this is totally understandable. I mean, imagine that you are making plans to move to Portugal, which takes a lot of time and money. Often this will take people up to a year or 2 years of planning, because a lot of the times you have to sell all your things, disconnect from wherever you're moving from. That can mean selling your house, selling your cars, and condensing everything into suitcases to move abroad. It's a huge undertaking, and now people are faced with all this uncertainty. That's enough to really piss some people off and make them scared, like, are we making the right decision? It's a huge financial investment and also very emotional. So the anger, fear, and frustration is totally understandable. I was reading comments from on LinkedIn from our immigration attorney, Raquel de Matos Esteves, and she was saying, quote, people are fed up. Like the Portuguese government has a habit of doing this and just making these announcements where they remove programs or do these things. She said, they are concerned about their legitimate expectations being defrauded and their investments potentially lost. I mean, if you're coming here on the golden visa, you're investing, up to $500,000. And if you're coming here on any of the other visas, you're investing thousands of dollars from all the stuff you have to sell and all the moving cost and just everything else.
Yeah, so I got an article here with the headline, New Immigration Rules Scare Qualified Entrepreneurs from eco.sapa.pt. And it states, entrepreneurs from outside the EU are concerned about the new nationality and immigration rules announced by the government. They fear that they will have an impact on the attraction and retention of talent and a drop in investment. So this tells me that it's not only families that are frustrated with this, it also impacts investors and entrepreneurs that are already here or are planning to start a business here or bringing their business here. And that is a huge concern, and like it would change everything within your business. And yeah, I can imagine that people get frustrated about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen entrepreneurs who have invested in Portugal post on LinkedIn like Portugal is a scam, because they get sold these different investment schemes and immigration pathways to get to Portugal, and then they end up getting rug pulled because the Portuguese government will go and propose changes that change a lot of their business and impacts their life and how they move here. I know I've seen posts from the CEO of Cloudflare posting that he's really pissed off with the Portuguese government and he's giving up on Portugal because it's just one issue after another. So yeah, it's unfortunate because this is damaging the reputation of Portugal becoming, that was like a hotspot for entrepreneurs and tech investors to come here and invest their money into the Portuguese economy and startup scene.
Yeah, and this is just a proposal and it already has an impact. So every time they propose these big laws, people get insecure and change their plans and change their businesses. So it's a weird strategy from the Portuguese government to do it like this.
Yeah. I've already seen entrepreneurs on LinkedIn who are like, well, I'm over, I'm going to Germany or going to another country. So like our immigration attorney Raquel said, people are just fed up. Speaking of the opinions of professionals in the immigration industry, let's dive into some more opinions that we've been seeing online from legal and other professionals. Like we mentioned earlier, we attended a webinar from Fresh Portugal that went into detail about their sentiment about the law and what these proposals mean. Let's see what Zev Fisher had to say.
Well, Zev said something about acknowledging that it's reasonable for a country like Portugal to want to control immigration. And Portugal is not the only one that is dealing with an immigration crisis right now. However, he has always been very positive about Portugal and its current government.
So his take on the bill and the government's response, he has a quote here that says, it's like more about pain than control. They kind of have a whiplash response to the problems of immigration, and instead of fixing the core problems, they're just closing the doors, which is affecting the types of immigrants that Portugal really wants to see come into the country. People that are injecting money into the economy through investing or through D7 or D8 visas. So the sweeping changes that the government's making is not only impacting the target group that he kind of believes they were targeting, like low-skilled migrant workers that are coming in without even having a job and no help and assistance, and then applying to regularize their status. So he thinks that these were the kinds of immigrants that the government was targeting, but unfortunately, everyone is getting swept in with these proposal changes. So Zev is concerned that these proposed changes are going to have unintentional consequences.
Another post on LinkedIn that we came across came from Manuela, who is the head of immigration at Fresh Portugal. I'm not going to quote her specifically, but it came down to that she acknowledged that at first she was furious too, or like, what the hell is happening here? Like, why this? But after looking into it, she was like, it's kind of needed to protect Portugal to keep its integrity. Because Portugal is being used almost as a port into the EU. Like it's a low or easy threshold to get into the EU. So as soon as people are here, for example, giving birth to a baby and that baby gains residency, they move on to a different country to get a higher paying job, for example. Or there's multiple ways to use this system right now.
Since Portugal has easy requirements to gain citizenship, a lot of people will come here, bring their family, and then after the 5 years is up and they get the passport, they go somewhere else in the EU where they can get a higher salary. So that's just abusing the immigration system. And a lot of sentiment from professionals are saying, yeah, some of these proposed changes are necessary to rectify the situation and the abuse that's been going on with the immigration laws.
Yeah, it's basically to ensure that immigrants come here
in good faith. In good faith. And so one takeaway from some of the opinions we're seeing from the professionals, including the webinar we attended with Fresh Portugal, is that they're predicting a lot of these proposals will kind of be watered down and walked back and make the requirements a little less strict, because there's going to be lobbying going on from investors and politicians that are saying some of these proposed changes are just too extreme and not fair. So what they're predicting is a lot of people who have already applied will be grandfathered in. And they're saying that there is legislation in the Portuguese constitution that makes it unconstitutional to go against retroactivity, meaning you can't go retroactive and take someone's rights away that they had before. So that's what they're predicting, which is good for anyone that's already here, but for people who are hoping to come here, unfortunate for them, because they are saying that like probably a 90% chance or whatever that a lot of these proposed changes, including the 10-year requirement, are going to go through. Whether they drop that 10-year requirement to something lower, we'll see. But
yeah, we already saw proof of that yesterday. I saw a news article, which I'll share on screen, of the resident yesterday. New socialist leader Jose Luis Carreiro has said today that his party cannot vote in favor of changes to the immigration law proposed by the government if they remain in the version so far presented in the parliament. So it means like, okay, we're gonna to accept a few of these new changes, but not all.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we're expecting to happen.
So we're already seeing proof that this is going to happen. So we'll see where the final changes end up.
And besides all that, our attorney Raquel also posted something on LinkedIn, and she expresses dismay that the measures are blind to the many types of immigration. She fears that it will discourage professionals, investors, and researchers who are currently in the process of considering Portugal, and that they will not come. That they will just stop with their process of getting here. So after all this, after hearing what professionals have to say, joining a webinar, what are our thoughts? How does this influence our situation here in Portugal? If you've watched one of our videos on why we chose Portugal, if we can live anywhere, where we were very transparent in our reasons for choosing Portugal, you would know that the 5-year period to citizenship for Eric was one of our core reasons for choosing Portugal. And if we had known that it would be 10 years back then, we might have chosen the Netherlands. That's where I'm from, so it would have been a faster route to citizenship for him.
Yeah, it would have taken, I think, 3 to 4 years there. So
yeah,
and that's because she's Dutch.
Yeah, but there's a multitude of reasons why we chose Portugal. Citizenship, or like the route to citizenship, that visa was not the only reason.
I think there was 15 or 17 reasons in that video.
Yeah, a lot.
But yeah, the 5-year passport and citizenship was one of the important key decisions.
Yeah, because as a family, we're an international family and we're working remotely. We've been living the digital nomad lifestyle for, I don't know,
almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So like location independence is like one of our values that we hold that close to our heart. So being able to pick up and live anywhere that we choose.
Yeah. So back then we didn't really want to commit to living somewhere for 10 years to gain citizenship. I think if we had the options like that presented, we might have changed our minds. I don't know. There's, like I said, there's multiple reasons for choosing Portugal. So what fits your needs in that moment? However, now that we lived here for 3 years, I'm really sold on this country. I don't want to leave.
Yeah, I mean, looking on the bright side, we've already been here for 3 years. So a lot of these changes wouldn't really impact us regardless. If you've been watching the channel, you know that we are pregnant with a second one coming. And so for our next child to also be able to get a Portuguese citizenship, we'll have already been a resident for 3 years. So that one doesn't affect us. If we have to wait an additional 5 years, that would suck, but we also don't plan on going anywhere. We're here in Portugal to stay. We love this country. We plan to continue our integration.
I'm planning to buy a house here.
Yeah, we're in the middle of buying a house. I'm taking Portuguese lessons. Josine's eventually going to start taking Portuguese lessons. My goal is to become fluent by the time our daughter Nora does. All right, so let's talk about how you can take action. If you're concerned that these changes are going to impact you or they might scare you away from applying, we're going to discuss what you can do today.
Yeah, well, the first thing, and that's based on what our lawyers and all the professionals that we've spoken to say, is apply now. Like, do it now before this new law is integrated in
by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. Because if you're in the system, then there's a bigger chance that you're being grandfathered in. We're not saying that that is going to be the deal, but if that is going to be the deal, you better be in the system. That's the best way to move forward. It's a good strategy.
Yeah. So they are predicting that current applicants will get grandfathered in, hopefully. So like she said, make sure you apply today and don't wait.
Yeah. Another thing you can do is sign a petition, and you know more about this one.
Yeah, so there is a petition that has been submitted to Parliament, and if it gets more than 7,500 signatures, the Parliament will be required to review the petition and the provisions that are being introduced. And the provisions that are being introduced are, it demands provisions that ensure that everyone already legally residing in the country retain the right to apply for citizenship under the current 5-year rule, even if the law changes. So even though the professionals are predicting that they're already going to change it to probably do that, this petition is more of like a concrete way of making sure that hopefully Parliament will discuss and agree to that, because it is a lawful constitutional request based on the principle of legitimate expectation, and similar measures like this have been implemented before.
Yeah, so make sure you sign the petition. There's a little bit of a process to get your signature in. You have to click on the link and register your name and email address. Then you have to click on the link again to be able to vote or to sign the petition, and then you receive an email to confirm that you actually voted for this petition.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-step plan to do this. I checked this morning and I think there's already 12,000 votes for it, but the more the merrier. So
sign the petition.
Apply now and then sign the petition. To add to that, if you're applying for a residency today and you need help or you have questions or you just want a consultation with one of the lawyers that we've mentioned, we are adding links to their websites in the description. So for Fresh Portugal, for Raquel's RME law office, you can go there and book a consultation call with them.
So what are your thoughts on the proposed legislation? Share your comments down below respectfully and tell us what you think. We'll be happy to get the conversation going.
And if this video provided you with clarity and context and calmed you down a little bit before you panic, please hit the thumbs up button down below. It really helps us, and make sure that you subscribe to our channel. We are posting videos every Sunday, and by your subscription you really help us create more valuable videos like these and reach other people as well.
And on top of that, as these proposals are solidified in Parliament, we'll continue to monitor the situation closely and bring you updates as they happen. And just remember that nothing is finalized yet. Everything is in draft. So if you are in panic mode, don't. Just calm down, take a breath, and realize what we've been telling you, that our lawyers said things are probably going to walk back. Some of these measures will probably be watered down, and they'll probably be adding provisions in there to grandfather people that have already applied.
Portugal is a wonderful country, and we really hope that a fair and reasonable outcome will be reached. So, as always, thank you for watching, and remember, explore life beyond borders.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.